Sweet surrender as I love, serve, and remember.
Empowerment. You know, it's hard to be empowered. This is a stage where we make things happen. If you're a dog and you love to play catch because you need somebody to throw the ball, and so you feel dependent on somebody else. So you might feel victimized. But I saw this video of a dog who felt very empowered. So what he would do is, or she, I'm not sure which, she would take the ball in her mouth, run up the stairs, let it go, run to the bottom of the stairs, and the ball would come down, and she'd grab it, she'd run back up, and she just played catch with herself. That is an empowered dog. So we're going through the 4 stages of consciousness. The first stage is the to me stage. We talked about that last week. And this is very much that time where you get to the moment, you can either sort of walk through life as a victim, feeling helpless, but there's also those moments where you just feel powerless, and you are powerless. You feel helpless. And sometimes I believe that to me stage, that victim stage, lasts a long time because we don't actually step into the fact that we're powerless. We avoid it. We pretend that we have control. We're pretending that these things aren't bothering us. But by owning, oh my gosh, in this moment, I've done all these things and I just can't get past it. It's a place of vulnerability, and that's the key place for us to be on this journey of life as a human being and as a spiritual being, to be able to be vulnerable, to be willing to be tender. And as we are this with ourselves, it makes it an easier access to be compassionate and tender with other people when we see that they're afraid too, that they might not be able to be that vulnerable. Sometimes people who hurt other people because they're afraid to be vulnerable. So this is the most incredibly non-power place to be in many ways, because it can begin our journey into new life. It creates space. I don't know what to do. I'm helpless. So what begins to emerge is not just compassion and tenderness and kindness for yourself and for others. From that place, we start to feel led into possibilities. Something comes and says, wait a minute. Some little voice says, I might be able to move past this. So I want to talk about this from the human perspective, from being on a human journey, and also from the spiritual perspective. So from the human journey, this next stage is by me. And this is where we are empowered to make changes, that we don't have to accept the conditions upon which our lives were made. We don't have to accept our family, anything that has told us that we can't have. We can't express the magnificent truth of who and what we are. That might not actually be true. And so we can start taking action, making different choices, using our mind, changing our thinking. And the whole point of changing your thinking is to open your possibilities, to say, oh, there are possibilities here that I didn't see before. A lot of times we feel a wall, but there's actually not a wall. We just have to change our perspective. So the empowerment, the stage of by me is changing our perspective that, oh, in fact, there are possibilities. Now, there are some people who get to that stage more easily. Well, let me just say, this to me is, these 2 stages are key to this great human living. On this stage of empowerment, we are living our entire life. And this is something, a new awareness that I had in how I articulate it, because when I had learned it was like you go the stages, and as you get to these higher stages, you don't need these lower stages. But it has become clear to me that this stage, this by me stage, is what we are doing our entire life. It includes the other stages, but it's essential. As long as we're human beings in the human life, we have to be participating, co-creating our world to the greatest extent we can. And what we're finding over and over and over again is that people can go way past boundaries of which they thought was impossible. One of the things about having a son who is an athlete, all these videos I see, there's just one story after another of athletes who have hit a limit and then go past it. And we have world records. So many times a world record is broken. Nobody could get past this boundary. One person gets past that boundary, and then suddenly other people can do it. That which seemed impossible, not only is one person doing it, suddenly it makes it possible for a lot of people. And I was listening to a psychologist, Reverend Ellen Langer. She's a Harvard-trained psychologist. She teaches there, and all this research on human limitations. And she was talking about even as people get older, their mind said, well, I can't do that because I've gotten older. So they took a group of men and they put them in an environment where they were 20 years younger, and they had magazines and TV shows from when they were younger, and their whole being changed. Even their vision got better. They started doing things that they said they couldn't do anymore. So many things that we do are these human limitations that we put on ourselves. I can't do that. I can't do art. I'm not an artist. Yes, you can. I think of Yogananda, this woman. I'm so glad I didn't have Yogananda as a teacher, because he would make people do things that were scary. It would be so scary for me. There's a woman, and she said, our car engine is bad. We can't use the car. Well, we need to take it to the auto mechanic. And Yogananda said, oh, no, you need to fix that. She goes, I don't know the first thing about cars. He goes, well, ask God, but you have to fix that. And so she had to learn how to train herself to listen, to learn. And and then people started to come and teach her things, but she fixed the engine in a car, knowing nothing. She stepped into it. So many stories, we know George Washington Carver and coming up with 500 inventions for the peanut. And he said, it's just because I listen. The mysteries of the universe are in everything, but we have to follow it. So this starts to impact our life. Where are my limitations? Where is something that I think that I want, but I think that I can't have? I've tried, whether it's physical health, emotional health, money, relationships, jobs. I've hit a wall. I just can't get past it. That's when we go to stage 1. I feel powerless in this. No matter what I've done, nothing has changed it. And we go into the depths of our being and just listen for that new life, because what we know is this is an infinite universe. Something new is going to emerge, but it can't emerge until we actually own that of myself, I can do nothing. So I have seen so many of these video clips of athletes who have gone past their borders. So the one story I remember is the one before I saw all these video clips, and many of you heard me share the story before because I think it's so remarkable, of Wilma Rudolph. How many of you have heard about Wilma Rudolph? Raise your hand. Oh, so just a few. So I'll tell the story. Well, I'll tell it quickly. So Wilma was born in 1940 in Nashville. Actually, not in Nashville, quite far out. This is 1940, so quite a distance from Nashville. So she grew up in a poor black community. She was the 22nd child, and she was born in 1940 with polio. We had a president at the time who had polio as well. At one point, her mother takes her into Nashville. It's a long drive for them, and they go to a clinic that they're allowed to go to. And she's taught some exercises. They teach the mother how to do some exercises for her legs. They come back, her mother's doing the exercises for her, but her mother's got 22 children, a life, so she teaches the daughter how to do these exercises for her legs, the polio. So every day, Wilma is doing these exercises, and she says they hurt. They really hurt her, and it can get very discouraging. She said, I can do it for months and see no progress, but she kept at it. Something inside of her told her to keep at doing these exercises. And she did start to get better and stronger until she did her great revelation when she went to church one day when she was 12 years old. She drops her crutches and she walks down the aisle, able to walk. They had told her she would never walk again, that she'd always need these crutches. So at 12, through her own determination and who knows what else, she was able to walk. That's a pretty remarkable thing. Remember, think of all the people who had polio. That was when she was 12. When she was 16, she was running at the Olympics. She got a bronze medal. She was doing to go from polio to you're never going to walk out of crutches to be running in the Olympics in 1956. And then she went back to the Olympics in 1960, and she got 3 gold medals in racing, which was unheard of at the time, and she was called the fastest woman in the world. Isn't she glad she didn't listen to her diagnosis? Or what everyone else who had polio had to go through. And this is where it gets, mysterious. Is Franklin Roosevelt also had polio, but he was focusing on something else. Everyone has a different calling, so I don't think it's like therefore everyone can. I don't know. There's a lot of mystery to it, but there was something that she was listening to, pushing these boundaries, that was extraordinary. And so what we learn from that, and as you listen to all these videos, there is so much extraordinariness in this universe that we can access and that we don't, because we've accepted these limitations. So as we're going through these stages, and to look at yourself, where have I accepted limitations? Where have I just said, I've done that over and over and it hasn't changed, it'll never change? That's back down at stage 1. It's always a good stage because it gets us honest. If we just sort of ignore it, then it's never going to change. But if I just say, I've tried to change this, I can't, no matter what I do. We listen and new possibilities start to show up. I've never tried this. I could try this. I could think about it this way. I can read books and relationships. Maybe there's something I haven't learned or open myself to. We can open up to infinite possibilities. So the interesting thing about this is that so many people in this world are using this, and I'm sure you've seen it too, in every field. This idea that we can create reality and we can co-create and make things happen where we didn't see them before, that we are not victims eternally, that we can make change in our life all of the time, that we are incredibly amazing human beings. And people can access that. So you can use vision boards, affirmations. All the things that we have taught in the past in Science of Mind, everybody's using in businesses, in science, and in athletics and art, in teaching. It's just these tools are everywhere because we can all access them, and they make a difference in our life. I've seen it with my brother. He became the head of DC Water, and Washington, D.C.'s water pipes, as you know, it's one of our older cities, and the pipes underneath were just crumbling. And they had engineers who had headed up the DC Water before him, and they had not made much change, and they just continually got horrible marks for safety and for water quality. But the one thing that I really, not one thing, but the things, one of the things I appreciate about, I've talked about how my mom and Jerry are like being around people who are positive and say, so as much as we're hearing terrible things about climate change, he hits this wall with DC, with the pipes, and just, it's gonna cost so much money and it seems impossible, but he's like, no, we can do this. He just had this, we can make differences, and so he starts making changes, not him, but that person who believes in possibilities. That's what they needed, was someone like, no, we can do this. And so they found different ways to restructure the piping, and then even to pay for it. There was a traditional way, you just keep charging the people who are paying the water bills, which they did have to raise some of the rates, but they found all these other ways to create money, and suddenly the entire water system in DC is changing, and he's like, becomes a rock star in the water world, and he's traveling all over the world because he believed there's a possibility. And he said, I'm not an engineer. I don't even know half of what they're doing. But I have the vision, and I'm saying, yes, this is possible. It just takes one person to say, yes, this is possible. That's what every one of us gets to be, this vortex of possibility in our life. And then he's gone on to work in, he left that to work in nonprofits for communities that don't have all the access and resources that big cities have. So he's working with a Navajo reservation in New Mexico, and that's with his whole, it's called Moonshot Missions, and it's to bring that quality of water to other places. And he's hitting a whole bunch of other really difficult walls because there's not the resources. He doesn't have access to everything he had when he was in DC, and it's a much harder road forward. And it's not like one success after another. It's like they're struggling, but he keeps at it. So my point with that is you can be positive. In some places everything works, other places it's really hard and you're running into, but you keep believing that there's some way you can make it. That's what this stage is about. When I say stage, I think I don't know what the language I want to use, but this is something we want to live at our whole life, to feel that there's always possibilities. And to own when we don't feel the possibilities. That's essential too. Open our heart, open to new places, so new life can come through. Always, if we own the powerlessness and the helplessness, that creates the space for new life, for new awareness to come through. That new life can't come through if we're not admitting our powerlessness. What's interesting about being raised in a very can-do family is, and they're all like that. I'm just using Georgia's example, but they're all like that. And my parents. Is no one in my family believed in God, or God had nothing to do with it. So when I came to the Science of Mind teaching, I thought, well, this isn't spiritual. This is just human nature. If you believe in yourself, anyone can do this. But it turns out a lot of people can't, because for whatever reason, I grew up with a really confident family, but a lot of people don't have the belief they can do it. A lot of people, I remember, it was very upsetting when George, he figures a lot in the story, I guess. When he was in middle school, he gave 3 arguments about why God didn't exist. I had already had my first amazing mystical spiritual experience, and yet when he gave those 3 arguments, I was like, uh-oh, that might be me. And it's been a journey, but one of the things he said was, well, the only reason why God exists is because weak people need a crutch. If you believe in yourself, you don't need a crutch. And that's how he lives his life. He has since softened on that and said, I need help too. But at the time, he was a middle school teenage boy. And it fazed me because I'm like, oh, is that why I had a spiritual experience? Because I don't think I can do everything. I have actually very low confidence in myself because I don't feel worthy and I need something. And it didn't change my mind of whether God existed, but it made me look at myself differently. Like, oh, is there something wrong with me because I don't have that power? Well, there is something wrong with me because I don't have the power of belief. And why don't I have that power of belief? Why do they have it and I don't have that? But then I go back to, and I think people have wondered why, the spiritual journey, there is something beautiful about knowing that of myself I can do nothing. That I realize it's also a gift that was given to me. And to all of us when we get to that. That's why I believe my whole view of Toomey has changed, because I realize that's the gift. How many times was Jesus saying, the meek shall inherit the earth? The person who doesn't have, right there is the gift that Christ's presence shows up. That in fact, by knowing that I don't have the ability to do it, there was no other place for me to go but to God, to this divine presence of love. And so this takes us on the mystical journey. That when we open and say, I don't know how to do this, and if we sit in that feeling, at least my experience is, and I've been in this many times on my journey, something eventually opens up. Sometimes it's happened instantly. When I was little, it happened instantly. Other times it's taken me a long time. Even when I was a dark night of the soul, that took years. There are different experiences of how long I have to be in that stage, but in being that stage, if I'm with it, the divine presence, the infinite, opens up to us in ways we cannot imagine. and new life shows up. And now that new life is not self-empowered. So there's the empowerment stage, and it can feel very empowered, but it also can be separate from God. That we're creating, but I'm creating for my good, for my people, for my little world, or just for my own egoic self. We can come from a lot of different intentions. When we start we're empowered to create, not just for my good, but for everyone's good. One of my favorite things about Ernest Holmes is not anytime, but a lot of the times when he did a prayer for a specific person, he would then include, and everybody. This is everybody's good. He always included everybody because now he's in the infinite. Now we're in this infinite presence of good. And we allow that new life to come through us, not just for us, but from a place of connection with the entire universe. The entire cosmos is now available to us, not just to create for my own good so I can strut around and say how wonderful I am, which is just for our ego, but to say, look at my good, and my good is everyone's good. Your good and my good is the one good. So that's one element of the spiritual piece. But then there's the element of purification. So in many traditions, when you're on the spiritual path, there is the purification stage, which is where you're doing practices. All a purification stage is you're doing practices. So you're making sure you're living right, having basic moral values, but also you continue to do the spiritual practices. That's empowerment. Spiritual practices is empowerment. That's stage 2. You show up and you do your practices. I'm thinking of even 12 steps. I should have someone from 12 step come doing it. But that powerless stage, stage 1, to me. But from that, when you own that, when you get to that place of powerlessness, my understanding is, especially if you own that powerlessness in a 12-step group, then you get so much support to move into the to me stage. Here are the things, here are the steps that now if you commit yourself to, that it's going to start changing that inner world. Again, it's so you do like inventory, looking at yourself, you're making amends, you're taking actions to change your inner world so you can have a different experience out there. It's not just powerlessness and I surrender and there's nothing for me to do. Stage 2, by me, is the stage where we're participating and we're working. We're doing the work. Nobody gets to, not only do we not bypass the stage, this stage is essential for the rest of our life. We are doing the work our whole life. So for one of those points when I hit my dead-end road and I surrendered, and I said, okay, I'm powerless, I don't know what to do, I've done everything, and then I was given these 3 spiritual practices to do. It was back in 1992, and I was talking about them in January: meditation and prayer, sacred reading and journaling, exercise. If I do those 3 practices every day, so that was purification for me. The way it showed up was to love God with my whole heart, body, mind, and soul. Not just theoretically, not just to surrender and now I don't do anything. I surrender, and in that surrendering, I was given these 3 things to love God with my whole heart, body, mind, and soul. And then I started showing up in my life every single day, doing these practices. Not that they're magical, but by loving God through these 3 practices, by saying I'm doing something, I'm showing up on earth, giving my life to God in my human form, my life started to change. Because I was changing by loving the divine presence, by loving the source. So in many ways, what we're doing is in the moment we start to do by me, into this empowerment stage, and we recognize it's part of God, we are now on the mystical path. Anytime we're accessing and saying all of this is coming from oneness, I'm speaking oneness, I'm doing my treatments, I'm going to my classes, that's part of the by me. I'm becoming a mystic. I'm learning the language, I'm learning the thoughts, and if some thoughts work for you and some don't, you find the thoughts that work for you. But this is your way of knowing the truth of who and what you are, that nothing in this world could ever, ever take away from you. It's the most glorious way to live. But there's no way we can live a mystical life and not show up and do our spiritual practices. There's no way we can be full of freedom and the love that we long to be without doing the practices that make it possible. It just doesn't happen without that. I think of, and so I guess when I speak of love, so much of when we talk about empowerment, most of the videos that I see are about something we can create out there. But I think so much of what we want is in here. We want to know that we are loved. We want to know that whatever we're doing is making a difference in the world, that we are contributing to other people's good, that we're loving, that whatever gifts I have, they're in service to something greater than us. I think we all want to feel that we're both loved and loving and lovable. And so that is something that happens at this stage, that we can do prayer work. We can do things that start calling forth more love in our life. We can make that our intention, is to be so filled with the connection and the love of pure spirit. So there's this great story. Last week I mentioned this book, Tattoos on the Heart, and these beautiful stories. And one of the story is of Cesar, who Gregory Boyle, Father Gregory Boyle, he's a Jesuit priest. They call him G. I'll call him Gregory. So he goes to Boyle Heights, where there's these Mexican gangs, Latino gangs, primarily 7 Latino gangs, 1 black gang. And so he's working, there's an earthquake in 1987, and this one little boy named Cesar is something like 5, very young. And he's scared, and Father Boyle, or Gregory, bikes through communities just to check in on everyone, and he's always asking Gregory, am I going to be okay? Am I going to be okay? He just wanted some affirmation. So he says, I always associate him with that. Fast forward, 25 years old. He's just gotten out of doing a 4-year stint in prison. And he calls up Gregory and he says, I need some help. Can you help me? And he said, sure, I'll be right there. And he said, I have nothing left. My girlfriend burned all my, he's been part of a gang. Cesar joined a gang, that's been his life. And his girlfriend was mad at him, burned all his clothes. Can you buy me clothes? So he takes him to JCPenney's, and he says Cesar is a very intimidating guy. He was not just tall, but very muscular from weightlifting for 4 years, and he's loud. He said, he's like, those people over there, you see them over there? Yeah, I went over, I said, hey, do I know you? And the guy was backing up. He's like, no, I don't know you. He goes, do I look that scary? And Gregory says, yeah, you do. And everyone just started laughing. So this is a big, muscular, tough gang guy. And he takes him to the place where he's going to be staying, sleeping on the couch, and he can't get out of the car, and he just starts crying. I'm scared. He's back at stage 1. I'm scared. I don't know. I'm afraid of the direction I'm going. And Gregory, you've got this. You have the heart of gold. Everything you need is right there in your heart. So he drops him off, and that night he gets a call from Cesar at 3 a.m. He says he's stone cold sober, but he's clearly very upset. And he says, G, am I your son? And Gregory says, heck yeah, you're my son. He goes, yeah, I thought so. So I'll always be your son, and you'll always be my father, and nothing will ever separate us. And G said, yeah, nothing will ever separate us. And he knew he was loved no matter what. Father Gregory writes, in the absolute mess of his life that he had made for 20 years, that he had created, he had used the empowerment stage from a place of separation, and he had created a lot of problems for himself over that 20-year period. He said, and what he needed to know in that moment, that in the midst of this mess that he's made for his life, that he is still the beloved, that he's always loved, and that's what he needed to know more than anything else. Anything else, he just needed to know he was loved. That as we're on this beautiful spiritual journey and we're empowered and we're creating and we're doing all of these things, we want to remember that to be loved and loving and lovable is our deepest heart's desire. And that we can open our heart to experience that using tools, the same tools we use to create out there, we can use those same tools to find out that we're completely loved. I remember Dr. Martin Rossman. He was a teacher I had in ministerial school. He was a medical doctor for 30 years, and he discovered guided imagery really worked well for people to heal their bodies. And so he started, and the way he used guided imagery was not to say, you're in a meadow somewhere. He would ask them, he would take them into a deep inner stillness and ask them, where are you right now? You're in a safe place. What does it look like? And what I love about that is they're self-creating it. It's coming from within them. And so he told lots of stories, but one of the stories was a woman. She was a psychotherapist. She had a huge friend group, a really loving family, a husband who loved her children. She had a very full life. She got a breast cancer diagnosis, and she just wasn't sure. There was all these options, and she went to him to do this, to guided imagery, to find from the divine inner wisdom from within to find out what next step should she take. And so she listens, and so he takes her within, and while she's in this meditation, she experiences this angel that comes and completely envelops her in love, and she just starts sobbing. And by the end of it, she's like, that's what I needed. The thing that impressed him was that he said she had all the support in the world. She was healthy, mentally healthy, had friends, family, but what she needed was God. And I don't ever want us to forget that as much as we can create out there, that this connection with God is the most important thing, and nothing should come before that, because that love from God is it. That's it. And we can use this wonderful empowerment stage to open up, to feel and know the love of God as never before. And we could start walking through life with a joy, even when things externally seem scary, impossible. We can still be free. Not because we're denying what's happening in the world. I do not agree with pretending things don't exist. But even as you see the challenges that are happening to the world out there, even into your world, maybe at your work life, whatever's happening, you're not denying any of that. But in the midst of that, you know that there's a God that is greater than all of it. And you don't know it just intellectually. Your whole being is filled with love. Every one of us knows what it's like to have that moment where you know you are completely and totally unconditionally loved. That's what we're looking to move through our life as. No matter what the conditions externally, you are loved. You are loved. You are loved. You are loved by a presence that never sees anything other than love. That's using this beautiful empowerment stage of by me in the highest, most mystical way. And every single one of us has access to it. Now, you don't have to do anything. You just have to say, this is what I want, to know God's love. And if I don't know how to do it, that's when I go into stage 1 and say, I don't know. I open, but I keep my heart open. I don't know. And that presence of love is going to show up to you in a wild and crazy way, and not just once. It's going to ask things of you, and that's this by me stage. This is why we're at it all the time. You're going to have to do this. You're going to have to do your moral inventory. You're going to have to make your amends. You're going to have to do your spiritual practices. You're going to have to do your meditation work. You're going to have to take classes. It's going to give you things not to get its love, but as an expression of the love that's already been given. All the work that we're doing truly is just an expression of the love that's already been given by me. So you with me? We're in that love? You feeling that love? And we own it. And we live it. We are actively living that love now. So let's pray from that place of love. And you know what? Let's just stand. If you're comfortable standing, if you're not, you don't have to. But if you feel it, I think it sometimes gets the energy going. So in that place of to me, we're quiet. But sometimes when we get into the by me, it's active. We start to feel the vitality of being loved. And so we want to be in that vitality. And see and know and feel in this moment, to recognize in this moment all the love that has ever been and ever will be. Any love story that you've ever heard of, seen in movies, any love story that you have experienced, the love of God is greater than all of it. The love of God is beyond words. We're always seeking to find those words, but there isn't, and it's right here. The most glorious, powerful, intimate, personal, passionate, unlimited, unconditional, no matter what our life is, no matter what a mess we've made of our life or someone else has made a mess of our life, that love does not care. It is right here and right now, and in this moment we know that we are, each and every one of us, made in the image and likeness of this love, that we are receivers of this love, we are givers of this love, and we participate every single day in the awareness of the love that we are. We choose, as we do in the By Me stage, we choose love. We choose to see the world with loving eyes. We choose to see ourselves with loving eyes. We choose to open further than we've ever opened before. We are willing to show up in every way that is being asked of us so that we may access more and more of this love. And it's different for each and every one of us, but we know that love already knows. It's a miracle that when we are on this journey, the things that we discover have always been with us. They didn't just show up out of nowhere, that everything that we need has already been given. And so we hold that in our hearts. We claim it, we accept it, and we live it, and we give it. Each and every day, we are willing to move beyond boundaries that might limited us in the past. We allow ourselves to do the work, the purification work, the opening, the meditation, the prayers, to open and see and feel and know that which is beyond our wildest human imagination. It's all been given to us already. We are the miracles. We are the walking life of pure spirit on this earth. Thank you, divine, infinite love, intelligence, for all that you have given to all of us. And even where we know there has been great pain and great sorrow and suffering, even there we discover in the gentle trickle of the subtle life force, new life, that new beautiful budding sprout in the midst of hurt, of exhaustion, of suffering. There in the midst of it is this little sprout of new life, this new way of seeing, this new way of feeling that we've never experienced before, and we say yes. Wherever we are on our journey, we just continue to say yes. We continue to water the plant. We continue to tend to our heart, to our body, to our mind, to our soul. We continue to see and to know beyond what human beings never thought possible. And as we do this in our individual life, we feel that collective energy of yes, of love. It magnifies itself. We see the power of the collective consciousness, and we connect in that love with all beings, all beings, all beings. There's no limit. There's no conditions. There's no you're right, you're wrong. Everybody is included. Everyone is included. Because that is love, and that is who we are. And for that, we are forever grateful. We say yes, and it is done, and so it is. Amen.
I walk in God in all